Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Recruiting Podcast. I'm Alex Rojas, your talent advisor and host. And in today's episode, is AI stealing recruiters' careers? I have spent 5 years working very closely and intimately when it comes to artificial intelligence and automation and how it ties into talent acquisition. I consider myself to be an evangelist of conversational AI voice and chat technology solutions that are out there. And I firmly believe this. I firmly believe that the technology that has unfolded over this last decade was made for the talent acquisition industry. I mean, when you look at it, it is textbook made, use case, business case, this technology for what talent acquisition does. Perfect. The problem is, and it's always going to be the problem, is the recruiter. It's us. And that's been a career-long challenge that I have seen in our industry for the past 3 decades. Companies take the time to invest in the tools and the resources, and recruiters make the demands that they need this and that in order to be effective in their job. And what happens month after month? Usage is low, usability, adoption plummets, and nobody's using the product, budgets get cut, and then recruiters don't have any tools. Typically, it's about a 10 to 20% ratio when recruiters become actual super users or ambassadors or subject matter experts in a particular tool or a platform. And let's face it, a lot of recruiters are sick and tired of hearing about AI. It's a lot to take in. And the biggest hurdle has to be acceptance. And it's perpetuated by this fear that has been created, especially over 2024, the biggest fear in AI, and you hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. It's risk, it's compliance, it's fraud, it's attacks, it's security, it's privacy, it's legal, it's the legislation that's happening out there. Of course, what's there not to be fearful about? But in this episode, I'm going to address the 5 most common pushbacks that recruiters have when it comes to AI. And I'm actually going to dispute it. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to push back and tell you why it's not true. And then stick around for my mindset closing commentary. And I'm going to walk you through what it's like to getting to acceptance. I'm ready. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Let's discuss. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through these 5 most common pushbacks that recruiters have when it comes to embracing AI technology. And again, some of this stuff was okay to hear about it for like the first 6 months of the year, but over the last part of this year, to continuously hear this, it finally has gotten to a point where we need to address this. Okay, so the first reason why there's a most common pushback that recruiters have, it's going to have to do with, hey, the loss of human connection, right? Of course, this is the standard one. You know, nobody wants to talk to bots, right? Well, actually, we do talk to bots, and we do have digital assistants in our pocket. It's called Siri, and it's our iPhone. And so recruiters have this fear that AI will prioritize automation over, personal touch that it brings to hiring, that they bring to hiring. And so removing the relationship aspect when it comes to recruitment between a recruiter and a candidate is a fear factor that a lot of recruiters have. And so the dispute behind this, and where I'm going to push back on, is that AI was specifically designed to give recruiters back time so that they can focus their attention and excel in other areas that are not repetitive and not mundane. Because let's face it, there's a lot of things that recruiters do that is so repetitive and task-oriented that it's actually kind of boring, and we don't want to do it. And if we had the choice, we would outsource it. Some of us do outsource certain functions and activities within the full lifecycle recruiting process. So the second most common pushback that I hear from recruiters when it comes to AI is the bias in AI algorithms. And this actually makes me chuckle because HR and legal departments, they love this. They love talking about biases when it comes to AI. And so there's this heightened level of concern when it comes to AI systems perpetuating or amplifying the existing biases when it comes to hiring decisions. And so they believe that this is going to lead to unfair outcomes, and legislature and policy making is going to come in and just put an axe to it all, and we're not going to have AI. The heightened concern when it comes to AI and the biases that are built on there, okay, it's understandable, but the pushback has to be this, that every organization is different. No matter how large or small your organization is, every situation and every use case has to be vetted out thoroughly by the HR department, by the legal, by data privacy, by the TA leaders and organizations. And so each use case has to go through an analysis and assess really what is going on, what are the risks, is it low, is it high risk, and can we mitigate the disconnect or the gaps when it comes to biases. And you can get through that, but don't let the fear of bias overcome the ability to incorporate cutting edge technology, because if you stay stagnant for the next 6 months, next 1 year, 2 years, you will be left behind when it comes to this. All right, number 3 has to do with the reduction in management. And so this is something where managers, leaders, directors, VPs in organizations, there's a fear that maybe they're not going to be needed anymore, right? The fear is that AI will come in and reduce their role as managers because they oversee the process. It's going to remove them from any kind of strategic or operations input when it comes to talent acquisition discussions. And so that's probably the biggest factor in there. And so the pushback on this end, and why I dispute that, is that it's completely opposite of that, actually, because what AI does is it gives managers and leaders actually more time to assess data and to focus on strategy. You see, that's the biggest problem that we have right now is managers are so bogged down on the mundane tasks of watching automation and making sure recruiters are doing their job and they're following through. And it gives them very little time to really assess the data, to look at it, to put briefings together, and to speak intelligently when it comes to the business. And so this will allow managers now to really focus on more strategic type of decisions. And that is sorely missed when it comes to managers, or for that matter, spending more time in developing those relationships with teammates and recruiters that work for them. Okay, so the 4th most common pushback, and this is pretty classic. This has been the one that I've heard consistently probably for the last 18 months. It's job replacement anxiety. That's right. There's a shock and awe sort of reality that hits recruiters once they see AI in action. Once they see AI actually doing a task that they're doing, then the defensive mechanism kicks in. And so, that's natural. Of course, there should be some worry that advanced AI systems might come in and completely replace the recruiter, especially when it comes to, some of the mundane sourcing roles and things like that. But that's not particularly true, right? I mean, sourcing and screening and communicating with candidates is still always going to have a human blend to it. So the dispute or the pushback on my end here is that, it's only going to make recruiters' roles that much more efficient and productive. And I think that's the hardest thing for recruiters to really absorb. Yeah, that yes, there are going to be pieces of your job that's going to be removed, but that's actually going to free you up so you can level up your game. You can level up your deliverables. You can level up the quality of candidates, of interactions that you're having with hiring managers, and you're not scrambling around with this basic activity task that you're overwhelmed with. So, of course, job replacement anxiety, it's a natural thing, but after a while, once you educate yourself, you should eliminate that anxiety and actually start embracing the technology. Okay, so the 5th most common pushback that recruiters have when it comes to AI, it has to do with the lack of AI skills and tool knowledge that they have. Now, this could be a space in which you could get left behind. I've spoken about this in my previous episodes. I mean, many recruiters right now do feel unprepared. They have not adopted or even leveraged any of the AI tools that are being integrated into the existing tool stacks that they have, or they're doing it on a very minimal basis. They have a general assumption on how AI works, but they fear that if they don't get on board with this technology that they're going to be left behind. And that's true, because if you don't adapt to the new technologies that are out there, then there's going to be other recruiters that are going to come up and they're going to have more fresh insight, and they're going to be a lot more efficient when it comes to working with these tools. So my pushback to this is just to embrace the technology, embrace AI, and dig into it. I mean, I can give a testimony beyond testimony here. I came into recruiting when it was a fax machine, and now I went from fax to AI, and that's happened over almost 3 decades. So I'm a testament here that says that I have to keep up with the technology advancements decade after decade after decade. So I encourage you that if you feel left behind, if you spend 30 minutes to an hour watching some of my podcast episodes, the ones that deal with AI tools and technology and ChatGPT, you won't be left behind, and you'll have a nice foundation of knowledge on how to proceed in confidence. Okay, so it's time for closing commentary mindset, and this is all about acceptance. Acceptance is the first step that we as recruiters need to make when it comes to embracing AI and the future of this technology and how it's going to impact talent acquisition. I have been hearing all of these objections for over the past several years when it comes to this type of technology, and recruiters have pushed back, but I have been an advocate in this space. And so it doesn't end. It hasn't ended. The Debbie Downers will come, the pessimists, the human being advocates, the fear-based recruiters that are out there that saying that nothing will ever take away the human factor. Of course, that's true. And I've always said that AI and human blend is what's needed. That's the world that we live in. We live in a digital and a human-centric world. And that's where technology is advancing towards. And so after a while, though, as a society, as a TA industry, we have to come to the conclusion that it's only going to advance even more. It's only going to get better, and it's going to happen so much more quicker than where we've gone in the last 2 years. And so as an industry, if you are a late adopter as a recruiter, it's not too late to jump on board, to get on that train, that fast train express, and start moving forward. Now, AI products and the tools and the resources that are coming into play again, I've said this repeatedly, they are overwhelming talent acquisition, but it's time to stop pushing back and start looking for the reasons of why it will it work versus why it won't work. And just like in recovery, the first step in recovery is all about acceptance. And just like we have accepted a lot of this advancements in industry, whether you're talking about electricity or machines or the internet, we're at that place now where we have to come in acceptance to AI. The key is going to be to not generalize or make assumptions about AI, but to educate yourself and educate others, educate your leaders, your peers, have these discussions, do the research, investigate, come up with the use cases. I'm always here and happy to help if you ever want to connect with me and you want to chat about what are your AI goals in 2025. I hope this episode was informative. Please remember to like, to subscribe, and comment. It continues to help the podcast grow. And until next time, remember, it's all about the mindset.